What's up, y'all? Welcome to another Free China stream. I think we're going to start doing this kind of thing regularly. So, what we're going to do is a little news update. Since the podcast should be moderately regularly, we're going to try to do it at least once a week. But it's kind of a mixed bag right now because of scheduling and everything. Well, anyway, just got home from the day job and just working a little bit. It's November 3rd, so having a little fun. Figured I'd talk about some of the interesting news stories that were happening. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you'll know that we have some problems with this little organization here, which is the World Health Organization. Also, if you're listening to this on podcast services, because I am going to put it up on the pod feed, you might want to go to, first of all, you should be on the Twitch. Go to twitch.tv/FreeChinaPost and follow us there. You can interact with us live, talk to us, chat, hang out, have some fun. That way we can have some direct contact. It's a little more good times there. And you can also join in. Maybe we'll make little friends. We'll get a little gaming on together. Because I do play a good amount of games, and a little bit later I might be playing some games as well. But yeah, so I give some news updates. You can also check this out on the YouTube, or again, I don't recommend signing up for this service, but if you already have it, if you have a Rumble, you can also get over there. Don't give Peter Thiel any money. I encourage everyone to not do that. But it is easier for us to monetize over there, and we're doing what we can right now. So also, if you have recommendations on alternatives to YouTube, because YouTube already, if actually one of the reaction vids I did last week, which was reaction to John Oliver, he did a last week tonight on Taiwan, which was overall quite good. I did a reaction and YouTube took it down. So thankfully we didn't get a copyright strike. They just took it down. So shout outs to them on that. I appreciate that they didn't give us a copyright strike, because that would have been real lame. But they did block the video, which I suppose is fair. I'm not going to complain about it too much. But it is demonetized on Rumble, but it is still up there. So if you want to go watch that, you can go over there. Again, if you don't have an account, don't sign up for one. But feel free to go check out the video and give it some love. Give us some rumbles. So the reason I have this World Health Organization thing up, and this is much fewer tabs than I would normally have, but is because the Taiwanese vaccine, which you guys, if you listen to the podcast regularly, and if you don't, go subscribe right now. Pause this video or pause this podcast. But, I mean, if you listen to the podcast, you should already be subscribed. And go subscribe to the Free China Pod on whatever podcast service you like. We're on, I believe we're also on Stitcher, but we're on, I use Podcast Addict. We're on Spotify, iTunes, everything. Also, if you're on iTunes, hit us with a rating. That 5 stars really helps us a lot. And, of course, share with your friends. But so we have this WHO statement on solidarity trial vaccines. So what they're saying here is that actually in these 3 countries, Colombia, Mali, and the Philippines, they've actually launched a trial of 2 vaccines. And one of them is the Taiwanese vaccine, the protein subunit vaccine that we have here that I'm signed up to get, which is right here, is the Medigen vaccine. Okay, they also approved another vaccine from Innoview, which is a DNA vaccine. It's an encoding of the spike protein. The good thing about this I'm writing an article about this as well, so make sure you guys go to the site, and I'll drop all these links in the description for both the podcast and for the videos on YouTube, etc. So if you're looking to dive into these a little bit more, feel free. They'll be on there. But some good things about this Medigen vaccine is it's a little more simple to create, because it's a protein subunit as opposed to being like an mRNA vaccine. A lot of people, well, most people don't know what an mRNA vaccine is anyway, but suffice it to say that it's a newer technology. It's actually, there's a lot of promising research coming out around it, but it is quite new, so it's not as easy for people to replicate. But out of these 20 vaccines, these candidates that they had, they picked these two, which is obviously the Taiwanese and then another vaccine from the U.S. This one's from the U.S. So that's looking pretty promising. Hopefully what happens with that is that we see an increase in uptake of the Taiwanese vaccine, because there are people currently like allowing it. Actually, the U.S. doesn't allow it as a vaccine for like vaccine passport, etc. But we're seeing more people take it up. I know Palau has taken it up, which makes sense because Palau is a big one of Taiwan's very few remaining allies, one of 15. But some bigger states like New Zealand has accepted it as a valid vaccine. So hopefully, if this trial goes well, and also phase 3 testing is currently going on, I believe, in Paraguay. Double check me on that. But phase 3 testing is underway. Phase 2 trials went quite well. It saw, like, roughly speaking, about 80 to 90% protection. Granted, this was a little while ago, so some of the variant stuff wasn't as prominent. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well. It's got around, last I checked, and these numbers are a little bit old, but about 1 million people have taken it in Taiwan. So that's good. It's got, some people are a little wary about it. People are kind of nervous. They say like, oh, they're a little bit self-defeatist about the vaccines here, which is funny because they're really gung-ho about, a lot of people are taking the AZ, which at least in the trials underperformed the Medigen, which is funny. So I have a lot of arguments with people about that here. But, it's understandable. People like to get down on their own governments. Everyone likes to dump on their own country, right? At least to some degree or another. And if you think you're a real patriot, think about how many times you criticize the government when it's not your party in power. It's probably quite a bit. I do that myself. But that's if it's done in a constructive sense and to a fair degree. I feel like it makes sense, right? That's how you. It's kind of a patriotic duty, is to criticize the flaws in your government and hope to try to make it better. So it is what it is. But suffice to say that this is good news and makes me pretty happy that they're doing this. Some bad news is this. So we're gonna refresh this. So you can watch this right now. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing the video. So anyone who's not on the video, I would encourage you to go look at this. But this is on Tianxia, or Commonwealth Magazine. These, if you don't know, if you can't read the Mandarin here, these are Chinese incursions into Taiwanese airspace, or we call it it's technically not Taiwanese airspace. I should be a little more accurate in my wording here. It's the ADIZ, the Air Defense Identification Zone, which is basically once you enter that, that's when they'll make a call to say like, hey, listen, you got to back up. So Daniel Gao here, he's on Twitter. He's a good follow. Everyone go look him up. But he was one of the guys who set this up, and this just shows you how you can just look at the days just constantly flying past into Taiwan's ADIZ. And so this is why when people talk about American aggression against China and how I've heard recently a lot of leftists in America talk about how America is just ramping up against China, and to some degrees that might be true if we talk about certain. I mean, as we watch this number tick up into the 800s over a couple months, you could make that case, and I would love to have some discussions with people who think that America is being aggressive to China, and I might agree with you in some of these. But when we're talking about the South China Sea, talk to these. I mean, you look at these nations, look at reporters from these nations, like the Philippines, obviously, like Taiwan, like Japan. They're all worried about Chinese aggression because of things like this, where they're just constantly pushing the boundaries. I mean, Google the 9-dash line, these just made up ideas that they have about these quote unquote historical territorial claims that are absolute nonsense. Let's be honest. Just like their claim to Taiwan, it's nonsense. Taiwan has never been part of the PRC. It's just ahistorical and afactual. Now, if we want to talk about colonization in Taiwan with the KMT, I'm here to have that conversation all day. I think that that is an important conversation, and that we need to be more inclusive, or Taiwan needs to be more inclusive in a lot of ways of indigenous culture. That being said, those cultures, including Minan or Taiwanese culture, Hakka culture, they would all be absolutely devastated if China were to do an invasion, which is what it would be. There's no reunification. That's an idiotic term, and anyone that uses that, you should at least question them and take their opinion with a grain of salt, if not outright dismiss them, because you cannot reunify two things that have never been unified. But anyway, like I said, just over like about a year here, we have just 800 incursions, and these are continuing to go on. They obviously ramped up around Taiwan's National Day, and also around the anniversary of the foundation of the CCP, which both happened within 10 days of each other. So this is the 1st of October and then the 10th of October. But yeah, this is frustrating, but just keep people aware of kind of what's going on here. And more frustrating news coming out of China, we have this statement from the Foreign Correspondents Club of China. So this is kind of regarding the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics, which are coming up in just a matter of months here. And I have a couple little tidbits on this. Also plug real quick for our Twitter here that we're looking at. Look at this beautiful logo. Go follow FreeChinaPost on Twitter, at FreeChinaPost, obviously. So basically, they are concerned about lack of transparency, from the Beijing Olympic Games, from the BOCOG, the BOCOG, the Beijing Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games. So basically, they're having a lot of trouble here, as we can see, with clarity, but also with access, and with what they can do. So it's saying here, I'll read some of these quickly for the people that are just listening to audio. But the first tweet says, the FCCC, which is, again, the Foreign Correspondents Club of China. And if you are listening to the video, I would encourage you to go check out this tweet. It is currently, at least, their pinned tweet, so you can go through and read all this. It's a very long thread, and I'm not going to read exactly everything, but we're going to skip around here a little bit. But it says that the FCCC is concerned about the lack of transparency and clarity from the Beijing Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games, or the BOCOG, as well as the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC. And I would encourage everyone to go check out the articles that we've written. Oh, there's a little doggo. The IOC over on FreeChinaPost.com, because it is an insanely corrupt organization that really just cares about ad revenue and making money via their rights. Their streaming rights. So try to give them as little of your money as you can. Also boycott Beijing 2020. I would say boycott every Olympics, though. I mean, Beijing 2020 is exceptionally egregious, but basically all of them are nonsense. And it's tough because, like, I watched a lot of the games this year. Obviously, had to do some of that. Allegedly, perhaps, perchance, maybe, with a VPN, because I wanted to watch the Taiwanese athletes and support them, because Taiwan did fantastic in the Olympics this year. They greatly outperformed what had been forecasted for them to win. They were basically forecast to win, I believe, like 2 bronze medals or something, and ended up winning a huge number of them. But anyway. So they're saying that the IOC, they're worried about the IOC and the BOCOG in relations to Olympic-related reporting in China. So they're calling on them basically to improve. The third tweet in this thread here says, over the last year, the Foreign Press Corps has been continuously stymied with coverage of the Winter Olympic Game preparations, denied attendance at routine events, and, prevented from visiting sports venues in China. Okay, they've basically continued to provide these inquiries asking about what they should do, what protocols are, where they'll have access to, and basically have either been ignored or have gotten conflicting answers. So obviously, it fails to uphold, as they say, the IOC's own Olympic Charter, in which Rule 48 requires the Olympic Committee to make all necessary steps in order to ensure the fullest coverage by different media and the widest possible audience for the World Games, which obviously they would seem to want because they want more people to cover it, because they want more eyes, because then they get more ad dollars. Okay. Oh, do I not follow them? Oh, no, I definitely do. See, they changed, you guys, if you guys are on Twitter, they changed the color of the follow thing, which is frustrating, right? It's like, why would you do that? Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic here. Okay, so this is with less than 3 months remaining before the Olympic Beijing 2020. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty, and if foreign correspondents will be able to cover the games. There's also this is kind of just rumblings that I've heard. Obviously, there's always worry about what could be said. That especially with the two Michaels situation, which is not my favorite term. But anyway, I'm glad that the two Michaels are home now, Michael Spavor and Michael Korvic. They could potentially just detain people, which is always a worry to have. So basically, they've been able to unable to attend a lot of these foreign press corps. The foreign press corps has been largely unable to attend press events or even observe such like of these routine events like arrival of Olympic flame, which the domestic media have open access to. So some of this might be that they're trying to essentially make sure that Chinese media has complete access to it and can obviously that way frame it as they so choose. Okay, so there's this goes on and on. I won't follow all of it, but basically they say that like even though they're like asking for stuff, they basically announce things with like very little time left, and then they've done things with COVID test results, basically giving them impossible time frames to submit them in. Okay, and it just keeps going and going. So down here towards the bottom, there are some testimonials here, so some experiences here down on the tweet 22 here. These are not all like full 144 character or 240 character tweets, so it doesn't take you that long to read it. But anyway, so one of these says, we put together a TV story with material from a tour of Beijing and an Olympic venue and mentioned human rights boycotts. Soon after, the tour organizer called me on WeChat, the Chinese chat app, and yelled at me in English and Chinese for my report, threatening not to invite us in the future. We haven't been given access since. So even mentioning issues that are ongoing, so mentioning facts could get you blacklisted is what it seems like. So this one says, I visited Yanqing Olympic venues and took some photos with my iPhone along a public road. A security guard in an SUV began following me slowly. Pretty soon a police squad car showed up with lights flashing. They wanted to know what I was doing there, and they took pictures of my passport. We stood there for half an hour, and before they told me if we had any questions, we had to go to the Olympic organizers. Then they left. It was sunset, and a couple more guards got in my way as I tried to take photos in the near darkness. Okay, that's from a U.S. newspaper reporter. And again, these just keep going. There's all these stories. Anyone that knows about reporting, there's been a lot of stories recently out of China about issues with reporting and hostility of police and even citizens towards foreign media. And a lot of that is, Chinese disinformation campaigns. Obviously, we've seen that in the U.S. as well with Trump's presidency and his hostility towards the press. I think there should be a certain amount of, I wouldn't say distrust, but a critical lens that we look at the media with, just like we should look at everything with a critical lens, obviously. I mean, that shouldn't have to be said, but sometimes these obvious things do need to be said now in today's age, unfortunately. But they should be, you should double check things. You should check facts. But obviously governments should be taken with a much larger grain of salt, and it is not that they always do this, but it is the press's job to critique governments and call them out on issues and raise these issues with governments and ask for answers. And it seems like that's what a lot of people are doing, and it doesn't even seem like they're that critical in a lot of cases because people are afraid of being blacklisted in a lot of countries. So even these mild critiques or even raising of issues, not even critiques, are being met with some pretty swift reprisals. So keep an eye on that. And again, like I would say, boycott Beijing 2020. I'm interested to see. I wrote an article about this as well, but there's the gay games coming up in Hong Kong, and Taiwan has said that because of the new national security law, they will not send athletes there because it will put them in harm's way. I'm wondering if they will announce something similar with Beijing 2020, because that's where the national security law came from, and it's pretty much the same bag in China. It's very easy to get detained for nothing. They literally have a law that you can get put in jail for 10 years called picking quarrels and causing troubles, basically. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You made someone mad, and you might upset some people, and they might have an argument about it, and so now you get to go to jail for a decade. So, yeah. But keeping on with this Beijing 2022, Cantor, who is a Boston Celtics player, he has made a lot of comments on Twitter recently. He's a follow you might want to check out. This is another follow that I'll get to in a second, Badiao Cao, that you should check out. So he's been criticizing the Chinese government basically over Tibet and Hong Kong and a number of other issues, human rights violations. Badiao Cao, who is an artist, has been making shoes for him. I'll look at a couple more of those later. But basically, it says Badiao Cao told BBC that Cantor reached out to him a week ago regarding collaborating on the project. He had a very clear idea of what he wanted to do, advocate for the Tibetan community. So it kind of started with the Tibetan community, but has now moved on to Hong Kong, but also just freeing China as well, freeing the Chinese people. So he's known for his activism. He had his Turkish passport removed by the country's government over his remarks about Erdogan. In 2019, prosecutors in Turkey issued an international arrest warrant for Cantor, claiming they had links with armed groups by a 2016 failed coup, but obviously Cantor denies this. Okay, so I mean, anyone that knows about Erdogan knows he's not a big fan of critiques. So, and I won't get into the whole coup that was mentioned in this, but the coup in 2016 was certainly suspect. And then again, this is why you should be watching the video, is because here are some pictures of the shoes. Like I said, he says Free China. This is the other side of the shoes. It says 自由中国, which means Free China. And you can see like he's got the shoes with like the blood spatters on them, ones that say Free Tibet. No more slave labor, obviously talking about the Uyghurs in East Turkestan, or as it's known currently under its colonial name, Xinjiang, famous for its Xinjiang cotton, where they're obviously literally using slave labor. So obviously no Beijing 2020 with the blood drops on it. Like I was saying, these shoes are made by this one says Free Uyghurs. Badiao Cao which is, for anyone that doesn't know, I'll show you guys on the screen here. It's his Twitter handle is at BADIUCAO. He's an artist originally from China who now lives in Australia. He's had numerous threats against him, but he's very outspoken against the CCP, and obviously has faced a lot of threat because of it. This one actually has a picture of a monk, the famous monk, immolating himself, doing self-immolation in Tibet, which is quite a moving thing to see. And then obviously you got the Tibetan flag here. But yeah, Badiao Cao is a pretty great artist. A lot of very moving images and also very graphic in some cases. So if you've got kids, pre-check some of those images. Some of them are obviously acceptable for everyone to view, but some of them are a little bit graphic, so be careful with some of that. But great artist, and he's kind of a shit poster on Twitter, but he does have some good stuff. I really like his art. I'm not into the Twitter fighting, which it seems like, I don't know recently how much he's gotten into it, but sometimes does. Anyway, okay, so yeah, this is another article about him that I'll include in the descriptions. But like it says, he's a dissident artist. Anyway, you can check all this out later. I kind of talked about it enough, I feel like. Okay, so switching over to America real quick, we have the Build Back Better. Oh my goodness, they're gonna try to get me with this stuff. We have the Build Back Better campaign. Oh my goodness, so many pop-up ads. This is ridiculous. You will not have to deal with all these pop-up ads on our site. Okay, so we have the Build Back Better. So if you remember all the way back to when Build Back Better was first proposed, it was about 10 times when it was originally proposed by Bernie Sanders of what it is now. So it's already been just a month ago. It was sitting at about $3.5 trillion. That had already been cut in more than half. It was $7 trillion before that, and now it's at a paltry $1.75 trillion, which is essentially nothing. And remember, this is not. I've mentioned this before on the podcast. This is not $1.75 trillion over a year. This is over a decade. Okay, over 10 years. Okay, and so these are some of the things that are still included in it. So we have the child tax credit, equity and investments. Okay, some immigration. Higher education, which I'll get into a little bit later. Okay, so we have child care and preschool, which is $400 billion, home care $150 billion, child tax credit, and some of this might still get cut out. By the way, clean energy and climate investments have essentially been gutted totally. There's almost nothing. Medicare hearing, we'll get to that in a second too, at $35 billion, which has also been gutted. Higher education and workforce, $40 billion, it's also been totally gutted. And then immigration, $100 billion, which I don't even know what's in the immigration stuff. Okay, so for climate, basically has a proposed framework that contains $550 billion to quote unquote tackle the climate crisis, as Joe Biden fell asleep at a recent climate talks. Down from $600 billion, so $50 billion down is not the worst part of this bill. Okay, but so it says instead of imposing fines for electric utility companies that don't switch from fossil fuels to renewable or clean energy sources, an approach proposed by Senator Joe Manchin, who is now the president. In case you haven't noticed, he is taken over. Joe Biden has fallen asleep and is now President Joe Manchin. So he will be running the show from now on because Biden is literally asleep at the wheel. So we have President Joe Manchin and Vice President Kyrsten Sinema. So it relies heavily on providing $320 billion in expanding clean energy tax credits. So this is nonsense. These tax credits probably will be able to be switched around so they can keep burning fossil fuels and they can buy these tax credits. Is maybe how it will end up. We'll see. This is not the final plan. So that's a little bit of speculation on my part. Okay, so Medicare benefits. This has been, like I said, totally gutted. The framework would expand Medicare coverage to include hearing benefits, an estimated cost of $35 billion over 10 years. So again, it initially included vision and dental. Okay, dental is the main one because dental is the most expensive. But apparently teeth and eyes, they're not part of the human body, so we don't need to cover them. But ears now are. They've decided that ears are, in fact, part of your human body, which is really nice. I'm glad that they've accepted that reality. Unfortunately, we will have to wait probably another century before they realize that your eyes and teeth are actually also in your body. So before we had basically like a neck-down approach to Medicare, and now we have still a neck down, but also randomly your ears are floating somewhere above your head. So that's nice that they finally agreed to that. Obviously, like I said, Manchin and Sinema, president and vice president now, oppose that. Might be because Kyrsten Sinema just took like $750,000 from the pharma industry. Also, Manchin takes a heavy amount of that as well. And Manchin, whose daughter is literally was caught, by the way, and involved in a price-fixing scheme for insulin, a drug that has seen its cost explode. over the recent years. And that's because his daughter is involved in a literal price fixing scheme to make sure that you pay more. She was caught in emails literally saying, we need to find a way to charge more for this. So this life-saving medication. They also cut out a thing that they didn't talk about in here that would allow for the government to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies for the price of drugs. Obviously, Manchin and Sinema, with their deep pockets, taking literal bribes. That's what they're doing. Let's not mince words here. They're taking bribes from the pharmaceutical industry. And so they decided, surprise, surprise, when the pharmaceutical industry gives them all this money and they say jump, the president and vice president say how high. And quite high, in fact, enough that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans will suffer and die in the coming years because, they needed a couple extra $1,000 in their pockets. So make sure to thank them for that. I saw people complaining about protesters following Kirsten Sinema in the bathroom. Obviously, I would never condone anything violent, but I would say make these people's lives miserable. Make them uncomfortable. Do not let them sleep. Obviously, leave their families out of it, besides maybe Joe Manchin's daughter and wife, who have something to do with that price-fixing scheme. But besides that, never leave these people alone. Never let them live this down. They are killing people. That's the truth. But again, you should never do anything violent. That's not a way to get people on your cause. But I think pestering these people and then obviously organizing, running against them, voting against them, never, ever vote for these people again. Vote them out the next chance that we get. Unfortunately, Manchin's got a while on his term here still, and I don't know that Sinema wants to run again because she has probably a moderately cushy job as a lobbyist coming up afterwards. Okay, so paid family leave. It was super popular in polling. I'll show you some polling here in a minute to show you that actually all of this stuff is overwhelmingly popular, which is interesting to see it all cut out, which shows that, again, we do not live in a democracy anymore. We do live in a plutocracy where the rich control everything. So it was left, as they say, on the cutting room floor due to opposition by President Manchin. So the 4-week version has been whittled down from the initial 12 weeks. Okay, we also had free community college. So we had 2 years of free community college, which would have been huge for people. They would have been able, community college is not horribly expensive. It should have been free college for all, and they should cancel student debt because you can look up the statistics on this. I'm not going to do it at the moment, but I might do it in a later video. You cut these debts that people have, and surprise, surprise, they have more money. They put it into the economy. I don't think the economy is a good representation of how the average people are doing, but it is how most people measure it, and if that's how you want to measure it, it would be certainly booming a lot more than it is right now. If you unsaddled these people with debt, it would also give us a more educated populace, which I don't know. I think education is good. I mean, I'd be willing to have a debate with someone if you think that education is bad. Like, don't get me wrong. Ari and I have had arguments where I talk about ivory tower elites, educators and stuff, and how I have certain problems with them. But I love learning. I think learning is good. I don't think that should be an unpopular opinion. So dental and vision, like I said, championed by Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders also wanted to lower the wanted to lower the Medicare age to 60, and he actually said that was going to be a red line, and I hope that it is. There is a number of people, I believe Rashida Tlaib, who is the head of the progressive caucus in the House, and also Ilhan Omar have already said that they're not going to vote for this. And I hope Senator Sanders also does the same and says, listen, we had a deal. It was $3.5 trillion. We had already basically whittled down our demands so much and had an agreement, and we were going to vote on these together, and now you're trying to pull the old switcheroo. Sorry, if you can't keep your word, we're not voting for it, and because there's just not enough good things in here anymore. So it got stripped out, obviously, this dental and vision. And like I said, the lower prescription drug prices also cut out. So one good thing I would say is the universal pre-K is still in there. So the federal government would expand access to preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds with funding for the next 6 years. The White House said that it would mean free preschool for more than 6 million children, which would be great. That should obviously also be, just childcare in general, which there is a little bit if you talk about these child and income earned income tax credits, which is not the same thing. There should just be free child care for everyone in America, and also universal pre-K should also be just a thing. Again, education and child care is good, and that should also go for things like parental leave, which was also, by the way, cut from the bill. America is the only OECD nation in the entire world that doesn't have guaranteed parental leave. So, yeah, stay winning, America. As Trump says, we're getting tired of winning all the time as our country falls apart. Anyway, this one for childcare funding. A plan to expand funding for childcare centers would limit childcare costs to families to more than 7% of income for households earning up to 250% of their state's median income, the White House said. The administration said that the plan, which along with the universal pre-K would cost up to $400 billion and expected to expand. So this is good, but again, it should be free. They're always trying to means test things. And again, I will always sing the chorus of things should be universal. If you don't do universal programs, people are going to nitpick it. People are going to vote them down because they feel like they're getting a raw deal. So stop means testing stuff, you morons. College grants. So like I said, we had 2 years of free college. Now they're doing Pell Grants. Elder care, they have a proposal that would expand home-based services through Medicaid coverage for seniors and people with disabilities to reduce backlogs for care. It's also increased benefits for caregivers. The estimated cost $150 billion down from $400 billion. And so they're already cutting this as well. Again, elder care is good, but it should be universal. Everyone should be getting care. If you need care, you get it. If you need help, get it. That's how these things should work. Affordable Care Act subsidies. Again, if we would have done things like reduce the Medicare age from 65 to 60, then we start talking about expanding Medicare, and that's how we get a Medicare for All style system instead of this already semi-gutted Affordable Care Act that is already kind of in the tubes and is when the Republicans take back over next year in 2022 in the midterms, because Democrats are doing things like this where they promise that they're going to make big radical FDR style change and then they drop the ball. And in this case, it's not really dropping the ball. It's kind of an unforced error, might we say, where they're just kind of pitching the ball to the other team and saying, "Here you go, folks, have this one," because they're shooting themselves in the foot instead of. Like I said, Manchin, his daughter, is literally doing something that should be illegal. Instead of Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, handsy Uncle Joseph, going and talking to Joe Manchin like a President Johnson maybe would, a little Lyndon B. He'd probably go in there and he'd say, listen here, bucko. Me and Corn Pop are going to shake you down if you don't do this. I'll send your daughter to jail for a good long time. I'll investigate her. If you're not going to get on board with this, I'll shut down your state. Basically, I'll shut off all federal funding to your state. Instead of doing something like that, he says, "Would you like to be the presidency? We want to be the president, bucko? I'm gonna go have a soda pop. I'm going to go have a soda pop with old Jill." In fact, maybe it was Jill that gave it to him because, as we've said before, Jill was the president because Biden is basically a basement dweller now. But, hey. So housing here, we'll just wrap it up real quick. The proposal would set aside $150 billion for affordable housing. Not exactly for sure what that means, but the White House said that it will go towards quote, building more than 1 million new affordable rental and single-family homes, rental and down payment assistance, and public housing. Again, $150 billion is not going to go that far in the market that we have. People are getting evicted during this pandemic, as we had a horrible rollout of the stimulus. It wasn't that they didn't have the money, it's that they didn't roll it out correctly. They, again, tried to do things like means testing, and then they also tried to roll it out through like 6 different processes through these various states, a lot of them controlled by Republicans. And when you put the power in the hands of Republicans, they're going to bungle it on purpose to make the Democrats look bad, which they efficiently did. And then also, just because you add all these steps, even people that are well-intentioned are going to mess it up as well. So you had this bungling, you had people getting evicted, so that obviously looks bad. After you don't give people their full $2,000 checks, you lie to them and tell them they're getting $2,000, and then they only get $1,400, and then you, after that, kick them out of their house. And then once they're kicked out of their house, these landlords, especially places like BlackRock that own like a quarter of the U.S. or whatever it is, can jack up the rents. So these rents are going to go up. I don't know what they mean by building affordable rental houses. I would have to go look into the bill, which I might do. Maybe we'll do that at some point. I'll just go into the bill and we'll read through each part. I think actually David Dan, you guys can go check his work out. I think he's doing a line-by-line reading of the bill. Go check him out at The American Prospect. And also, while I'm thinking about this, we need to pass the PRO Act as well, which would greatly help workers and help with union organizing. And there's a line-by-line reading of that over at Labor Notes. So go check out Labor Notes as well. Lewis does a lot of good work over there. He's been covering a lot of the strikes, and that's something else that I'll probably cover quite soon, is the huge explosion in strikes, people quitting their jobs, and also, more importantly, I think quitting your job is great if you're unhappy with it, but a more important thing to do and a more useful thing to do would be to organize your job site, because then you can actually take some power back. So it's been great to see that. Obviously, like Frito-Lay there was strikes there. You have a number of teachers, you have a number of nurses. John Deere is striking. It's blowing up. United Mine Workers are also striking. It's all over, but it's blowing up, and I'm loving it. We had Striketober, and now we're having. I don't know exactly what we're going to call it for November yet, but that's one thing that's giving me somewhat of relief, and I think that organizing on the ground level is going to get you a lot more than organizing, trying to organize on a national level, because it seems that they're just going to sell us out, because these politicians are just obviously bought and sold by corporations, as we can see with our new president and vice president, that being Manchin and Sinema. The last thing here is rural funding, supply chain, and mental health. So it says the White House said that the framework also sets aside $90 billion, which is basically nothing over 10 years, and the nothing was my addition for you that are listening, for, quote, equity and other investments. Very broad. Love that. Including a rural partnership program that will be providing flexible funding. So rural partnership, that makes me think that it's a public-private partnership, which are basically never good. Those are basically money sinks where the private companies will take all the money and pay out their highly paid upper management to do essentially nothing. But anyway, so they say that will provide flexible funding for locally led projects. Now, I hope those are actually locally led projects, but we will see how that goes. It also provides money for community violence intervention, maternal health, pandemic preparedness, and combating supply chain disruptions, which we're having a lot of problem with. So all that is just $90 billion. So again, that means basically nothing. So again, we're probably not going to read this, but I'll include it. This is a Reuters bill. But again, $1.75 trillion, basically cut. I mean, nothing. This was supposed to be a huge infrastructure deal. It was supposed to be the great next thing. Get out of my face, Sleepy Joe. It was supposed to fix our infrastructure, which gets up until recently got a grade of D+. Now it does get a grade of C-. So hey, that's progress. And one of the most wealthy nations in the entire world, we're barely passing. That's great. It's great to hear, folks. You love to see it. So we're just going to skip over here. I'll include all this, but I've been talking to your guys' ears off, and I'm not going to approve those cookies on there. Okay, so let's look at this. We have these approval ratings for Robinette Biden. So keep in mind that this is not a huge sampling. We got 2,054 adults in the U.S., and then the margin of error also to keep in mind is 2.6%, plus or minus, okay? So do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling the job as president? That is a straight 50-50 split. I am actually kind of surprised that he is even right now because he was below water, and obviously pseudo Vice President Harris, again, Sinema has taken over that role now, but in terms of this polling, we're going to pretend like Joe Biden is still a president. Kamala Harris is deep underwater. I don't have her exact numbers, but I think last I heard she was 36% approval, just drowning in a sea of hate. And she deserves that. Kamala should have never been the vice president. She didn't win a single delegate, if you haven't forgotten. Everyone should remember that. She did not win a single delegate. Deeply, deeply unpopular. And she dumped on Joe Biden. She was like, Joe, do you remember what you're talking about? You remember everyone in the Democratic Party talking about how Joe Biden's brain was leaking out of his ears on the stage? And now everyone's just like, shh, time to go back to sleep, American public. Go back to brunch, y'all. You didn't see anything. Okay? So let's keep going. I'm going to try to wrap this up soon. So do you strongly, somewhat approve, or strongly, somewhat disapprove of how he is handling the job as president? So we have 20% strongly approve. We have 29% somewhat approve. So that's a good 49%. And then we have somewhat disapprove and strongly disapprove, which is the largest at 38%. So you have a lot of people with vehement hatred. Obviously, those are probably mostly Republicans, but maybe you have some leftists in there. I don't know. Which of these do you feel describe or do not describe Joe Biden? Effective, 45%, so 55 don't agree. Distracted is the highest describe here, and it is at 53. This is the only one actually where he is above water. So we have effective, distracted, focused, competent, incompetent. Incompetent is actually lower than competent, but distracted is the highest, which is interesting to see. Okay, and I should note that this is a CBS News poll, just so everyone knows. And again, I will include this in the description so you guys can go through it, parse it for yourself, see if I missed anything. How would you rate the condition of the national economy? Very good, 3%, y'all. Fairly good is 34, and fairly bad is 32. Okay, those are the two highest. So fairly good is the highest, to be fair, but no one is with almost within the margin of error saying very good. And again, I don't think that the economy is a good measure of how average people are doing, because when the economy booms, people are still making $7.25 an hour. Okay, they're still doing terrible. They're still struggling to feed their kids. It's just not a good measure. That being said, he's not even doing well on that. Okay, so approve or disapprove of his handling, economy, infrastructure issues, immigration, Afghanistan, issues of climate change, coronavirus vaccine distribution specifically is the only one where he's above water again, 57 to 43. So 57 approve, 43 disapprove. The one that I will defend him on is actually one of his worst. It's not the worst, but it's one of his worst. The worst one is immigration, actually, because he said that he was going to fix it, and then he's doing nearly literally the exact same thing as Trump with some minor changes around the edges, which is how Democrats operate. They're Republican light, so they're slightly different. But I will defend him on Afghanistan because he finally got us out of that war. That's one of the very, very few things he did. That and his executive order on basically ending this sort of monopolization of the, which is kind of a mealy-mouthed thing. We'll see if it actually happens. But I wrote an article about that and about right to repair. That's about it. Afghanistan and that are the only two that I would defend him on. And I understand the critiques about Afghanistan, but I still gotta say I gotta defend him a little bit on that. Okay. So, do you think inflation right now, or an increase in the price that you pay for goods and services, is being caused by? And then there's these. So banks and financial institutions, yes, 42, 58. That is a big one, but apparently it is underwater. U.S. government policy, 66% to 34%. So that's interesting. They're not saying which policies. That's what I would be interested in seeing. Higher consumer demand after the pandemic. That's an interesting word to use, after the pandemic. I mean, after it started, yes, it's not over, folks. Still 1,500 people dying a day at least. The supply and manufacturing issues after the pandemic, that's the highest, obviously. And obviously that's a big part of it. They're just not doing a very good job on that. But that's going to be a deal. I mean, when you handle the pandemic so poorly. Okay, we're going to skip over this a little bit, but I'll cover this one. So handling the coronavirus outbreak, 25% say very good, 32% say somewhat good, somewhat bad, 15%, and then 28% is very bad. Okay, so what I really wanted to cover in this, okay, was... So, yeah, these sorts of things, bipartisanship, 18%, 46% say not enough bipartisanship, which is loony bin nonsense. Like, this shows that people don't really know what they're talking about. Okay, this is what I wanted to get into. Okay, Build Back Better plan. So how important is it to you personally that Congress, whether or not Congress passes the Build Back Better plan? Okay, so we have 35% say very important, 36% say somewhat, and 29% say not important. Then infrastructure bills, 38%, 37%, 25%. Interesting difference there. Anyway, as you may know, the Democrats in Congress have been debating legislation around the Biden administration's Build Back Better plan. How would you describe what you know so far about the legislations? Okay, how would you describe what you know so far, okay, about the legislation they're discussing? I know a lot about specific things and what's in it. That's 10%. I have a general sense of what is in it and some specifics, 33%. I have a general sense of what's in it, but it's not really specifics, 28%. And then I don't know what is in it is 29%. So that's the second highest. And then I have a general sense is 33%. So they're doing a terrible job of messaging this. Okay. So the next part is whether or not you know about the item. I'm going to close this down, make this a little shorter here. Basically, have you heard about these items in the Build Back Better plan? Universal pre-K, 46% have heard that they have heard it, which is one of the lowest on here, that's one of the few things that's even still in it, by the way. Free community college, which is no longer in it, 53% have heard about that. Now they've probably heard that it's not in there, so that's going to make them happy. Tax increases for corporations, 53%. They're cutting those as well. Tax increases for income individuals, 58%. Medicare coverage, dental, eye, and hearing, 40%, which again, that is one of the most popular ones, but it is basically it is the lowest. It is the lowest. It's tied for lowest with the next one, which is lower Medicare prescription drug prices. But unfortunately, both of those, except for hearing, have been cut out of the bill. Paid family and medical leave. Paid family leave has been cut out, but 46% had heard about it. And $3.5 trillion in spending, 59%. Surprise, surprise. The most people had heard about the price tag. I wonder why. I wonder if they knew that it was over 10 years. Probably not. Again, terrible, horrible messaging, as always, by the Democrats. Obviously, the Republicans are out there every day saying $3.5 trillion, $3.5 trillion. It's so much money, pretending like they're spending that in a year as opposed to 10 million, or as opposed to over 10 years. And also the fact that they were going to pay for it with taxes on a very few amount of people, and it would have been relatively easy. And by the way, Elon Musk was recently screaming about how he doesn't want to be taxed. If they tax me, they can tax you. Listen, motherfucker, we pay our taxes. As workers, we pay our taxes. Sit down, shut up. By the way, if he would have been taxed under this plan that they're proposing, he would have still been the richest man in the world. So let's think about that, folks. These people, even if you had $1 billion, you could never spend that. And you can talk about how it's wrapped up in all these things that he has, but the reason that he has all this money is because he gets money from the government. He is one of the biggest welfare queens, not to mention scam artists when it comes to these different digital tokens that he sells. He's one of the biggest scam artists and welfare queens on the planet. Stop standing Elon Musk, and please, please stop defending billionaires. You're never going to be one. And if you are, just pay your taxes. That's all you need to do, okay? they're not even calling for a system that ends billionaires. I think you should, because I think it impedes, especially in the current system that we have, it impedes democracy. They're destroying democracy. Obviously, we can see with our current president, Manchin, and his vice president, Sinema, they influence people to a degree where the American populace, and we're getting ready to see it here with what people support, they're not following the will of the American people. So let's get to it. Would you support or oppose federal funding for the following? Let's see how many of these are above water. Universal pre-K for children. 67% would support that. 33% would oppose. So that is the one that's still in here. So 67%. That's quite high. It is not the highest here, though. Free community college. So this is not 2 years free. This is free community college. 61% to 39%. 61%. They cut that out of the bill. Medicare coverage for dental, eye, and hearing. This is the second highest approval rating, 84%. Only 16% of people oppose this. They cut that out, except for the hearing again. They kept the hearing. They cut it out. Lowering Medicare prescription drug prices, 88%. Can you think of an issue where you can get 88% of the American people to agree on it? That 12% is probably all in Congress. It's obviously not, but how fucking absurd is that? 88% of people agree on this, and you can't get it passed. You can't get. We're the one country where we can't get. I mean, not to mention the fact that we're basically the only quote unquote developed country in the entire world that doesn't have some sort of a national health care system. We've got one in Taiwan where I live, and which has a much smaller economy. And it goes well. It's amazing. If you would like to have a conversation about national health care, I will talk your ear off about it, because I've had surgery here. I've went to the hospital. I've had to buy prescription drugs maybe once. I haven't had to do it too often. I try to keep myself pretty healthy. But that being said, when you need it, it's pretty freaking nice to have it, okay? So 88%. Again, think of, like, I don't think you could get 88% of people to say puppies are cute in the United States. Apple pie is delicious. I would actually be against that. I don't think apple pie is delicious. So there you go. I don't think you could get 88% of people to say, like, I love my mom in the United States, all right? And we still can't get it passed. It's a corporatocracy. They've bought and sold the government. So we got to wake up, folks. Okay? And the last one is paid family and medical leave, 73%. All of these are hugely popular. These are not just Democrats supporting it. This is Democrats, independents, and Republicans in some cases that are supporting it. You don't get 88% of people supporting stuff without Republican support. Okay? Next one. To help pay for these federal programs and initiatives, would you support or oppose? Tax increases for corporations, 67% support. Tax increases for high-income people, 68%, which is funny because corporations are obviously paying more. But anyway, high-income people, 68%. Corporations, 67%. Expanding IRS enforcement for taxes owed, 58%. The thing that is, and that's, 58%. The thing that's frustrating about that is that currently the IRS has been stripped so badly that they can only basically go after low-income earners. So people have been lied into the fact that, I remember listening to AM radio, okay? I would listen to, like, right-wing talk radio on the radio just for fun to kind of check it out, and, like, also Catholic and, like, Christian radio. So they routinely for a long time, I remember, like, Jay Sekulow live. The IRS is going to come to your house with a gun. They're trying to Obama is trying to arm the IRS. They're going to come to your house, folks, and they are going to kick your door down. And if you miss 1 cent in taxes, you are going to get shot or go to jail. That's the kind of shit they would say. That is why this number is so low, okay? If we expand the IRS enforcement of taxes owed, you will not be coming after normal people, because, again, normal people pay their taxes. You may have a little problem. I doubt it, though, because most people just file on, like, TurboTax or whatever. They're not coming after you, folks. They will be coming after the millionaires and billionaires, which is who they should be going after, okay? So, listen, here's another thing. This is another reason why the Democrats have absolutely failed at this. As Democrats talk about their proposals, which of these have you heard about more lately? The cost of proposals or the policies in the proposals? The cost of proposals. Again, as Democrats talk about their proposals, the cost of proposals, 26% The policies in the proposals, 10%. Then you have both equally, which is fair, 34%, and neither 30%. Dereliction of duty. They're not doing their job. Okay? And it goes on and on. I'm not going to go through all of it. I encourage you guys to check out some of this. It's mind-boggling, y'all. I don't get it. So we had some good news. We had some bad news. The bad news, hopefully the good news is that the Progressive Caucus just doesn't vote for this. They just vote it down and say, get bent, like pound sand, okay? You guys promised us something and then you totally waffled on it, and we're not gonna go for it, you know? We're not gonna accept that. But I don't know if that's what they'll do. I hope they do. But we've had some good news, we've had some bad news, but you know, it is what it is, folks. I'm going to leave you with this. Go and check out our Patreon. I'm going to show you guys on here. It's always included in our notes. Look at these beautiful pictures we got here. Okay, as little as $3 a month, you can support us. You can be our buds. Okay, we got all kinds of levels from just a little to way up there. You can give us $1,000 a month. Obviously, you know, probably we don't have many rich enough people. $3 a month, we take $5 a month. Okay, $5. Look at this. You get free personal postcard. This is some good news, folks. Film photo that Aria Jordan we took somewhere in the world, and you'll get a different one each time. A lot of them were taken in Taiwan. They are film photos, folks. These are one of a kind. And we took them around Taiwan. Actually, a lot of these on here are film photographs, okay? So these are all film photographs, actually. These two are not. The first two, the $3 and $5 are not, okay? Take your questions, okay? We got a lot of these things. Just do it, all right? The other thing, if you can't do that, you can go over. Oh, it's going to take me to, like, the last page. You can go over to FreeChinaPost.com. All you got to do here, you go to FreeChinaPost.com. Look at this. I got my ad blocker down. So you take your ad blocker down, okay? You look here, and you got all these beautiful articles, look, all these beautiful podcasts, okay? You go here. Look at this. Look at this. You can learn. We got information, okay? We got things that you should boycott. We got things some history that you can learn. Okay, we got the Almanac of Taiwanese Politics. We got history of Taiwan that I'm going to be adding to some more stuff soon to give you even more details, and then information about boycotts. Okay, so you got all kinds of stuff. This Taiwanese politics will teach you like rough outlines about how the system works. Okay, so and then obviously you got some ads here because we disable our ad blocker. You find some interesting ones. I don't know why there's these weird videos. Anyway, you got all this stuff. You get a little click if you have an interest, okay? That will help us tremendously, okay? So go check out the website. We would really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. And again, you can also see, look at all these beautiful film photos that I incorporate. Ari doesn't always add them, but look at these. These are all mine. All these beautiful film photos, okay? So that being said, I really do appreciate you guys that come out when you check us out. Come chat with us. It makes my day. Whenever I'm streaming, you guys are popping up, having a little chat. We're having fun. You're giving me hints, tips, maybe asking some questions. People basically make you guys pay money for these Patreons for AMAs. I do an AMA every day. You just show up in the chat, ask me some questions. Okay, I'll do it with you. All right, we'll have a little chat. But yeah, and like I said, especially if you get the $3 a month on the Patreon, come over and talk. We'll do a little. You'll get invited to our Discord, and then we'll go play games. I'll stream with you, and we'll have some fun. Okay. So that being said, I hate doing all this, shilling for our business, but I got to do it because it's the only way that we can support ourselves. Because we don't make any money from. we're not supported by it. Like, we don't do like, everyone, thanks for coming to Free China Pod. Now I'm going to do 6 minutes worth of ads. Oh, hello Tushy. Do you guys like how about your dick pills? Did you get your dick pills today? Okay, we don't do any of that because it's nonsense. And also, we don't want to be like mainstream media and be bought out and have to censor ourselves. We want to be able to say whatever we want. We want to be honest with y'all, and we want to be accountable to ourselves and to you guys. And so that's how we're going to do it. But that being said, that's why we need your guys' support on a lot of these things. So in any case, even just coming and listening, even just clicking that thumbs up on YouTube, ringing that bell, subscribing, we appreciate even that. Sharing with your friends, going, hey, I listened to this sick podcast the other day. I hopped on and watched Jordan play some Death Loop the other day, which I might hop on and play in about 15 minutes anyway. But I hopped on and I watched him play some games. It was really funny, or it was really fun. It was really whatever. Okay, share it with your friends. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna stop talking your ear off. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Don't forget that FCP's a dog.